Thank you for joining us on our journey here to preserve the history of mixed martial arts. When I wanted to take on this project, I needed help. I brought in one of my favorite matchmakers, Miguel Geraghty, and the MMA detective, Mike Davis. So to do this, we've been able to preserve history. Welcome and enjoy.
Miguel Geraghty back here on the Lights Out podcast, and we're waiting on Chris Lytle. We'll see if he jumps back on. We are in deep dive time, so that means the MMA detective's here. Mike, got another victim lined up, our buddy here. Who we got?
We got Cole Miller all the way from Georgia by way of the American Top Team when he was fighting, but his path to the UFC is incredibly interesting, and it's definitely abnormal. So, Cole, welcome to the show.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Sure. So, Miguel, so people can kind of wrap their heads around Cole Miller, you really kind of got to get to know his family. Cole, have you, your brother, and your father all fought on the same fight card before?
Yeah, that's right. We, my dad was wanting to kind of get back into doing stuff, and he always wants to do stuff with his kids, and he had kickboxed many times. I don't know if he had 35 or 45 kickboxing fights back in the day, a long time ago, after he got out of the Marine Corps and stuff like that. And me and my brother had just started doing MMA, and he wanted to kind of, jump on board, and he did a kickboxing bout in Augusta as kind of like a comeback type of thing. And then that was my final amateur fight, and it was my brother's first amateur fight. I mean, it was, what's the name of that base? Fort Gordon, maybe, the one in Augusta, Army base out there. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. So that kind of gives you a feel of the households that Cole Miller grew up in. You have to imagine lots of broken furniture. Things were not really settled by a judge, but rather than the front yard. And, he raised two fantastic fighters. So your dad went by the name Old School.
Yeah.
So how active was he in the gym when you guys were there?
Oh, not at all. I mean, like, I started training, and he had come a couple times. I think it was more out of like protection. He's like, "Who's training my kid?" kind of thing, And
hell yeah,
he had some exposure to grappling. When I say exposure, he knew a guy who knew a guy that grappled, and like on a single day had gone and tussled with this guy. So that's what I mean when I say exposure. I mean, like one, not even a clash, just like he wanted to get on the mat and feel it, because he wrestled a little bit. He was not a wrestler, but he wrestled, in high school a little bit. But did have a kickboxing background, and we were fans of the UFC from the beginning, just to kind of illustrate where we found out about it or knew about it or whatever it was. So I'd started training, and then my dad popped in the gym, like work out a little bit. And my brother was training, but my dad, like he fought, show up like 6 weeks before each of the fights, or 4 weeks, or 4 sessions. Like, he was getting matched with some older guys that were similar weight, and the experience level was not high, what I'm saying? Well matched, promoter very well matched the card, very appropriately, did a good job. And my dad was a fighter for sure, with the mentality and the things like that. But you ask what his presence was like in the gym, it wasn't really present.
Okay. So you started at Team Praxis, am I correct?
Mm-hmm. That's correct. It was called the Academy of the Fighting Arts, Team AFA, and then it had a name change to Team Praxis.
Okay, so how do you start there, the beginnings? Tell us how that comes together.
We saw UFC 1 like live on the cable box, so that was our introduction to MMA, and we were it was like a family type of bonding thing. We all thought it was cool, and some hyper aggressive kids as far as growing up in that Power Ranger, Ninja Turtle, watching WWE, like age generation. Me and my brother, we fought a lot in the house. parents were divorced, so my mom had a tough time, I'm sure dealing with us, and we had another brother also, and so just a crazy type of upbringing. And then we kind of had that interest in MMA the whole time, always catching the UFC or the Pride card or whatever was happening. Got into college, got the T1 landline at college, and LimeWire, and download and shoot videos and highlights of like the guys that were hardly underground. But what I'm trying to say is like a casual would not know the type of guys like Ruben Asado that I was downloading videos of, and I was a very educated fan at the time, and I had a small job working at this bagel bakery and coffee shop, and a guy who had graduated the same high school that I did a couple years prior to me, he'd come in, he had like a purple eye and like a yellow eye, like the black eyes were kind of fading. And, I asked him like, who, beat you up? And he was like, oh, I train mixed martial arts, or maybe he said NHB. I can't remember, but I knew what it was. Like, it wasn't like he had to explain it to me. I already knew. And he was like, oh, you know what that is? That's dope. You should come train sometime. And I said, yeah, I'll come train sometime. It sounded cool. So I went to this, the gym was in a gym, like a conditioning unlimited. It was like a fitness gym, but he just rented, not my buddy, the coach rented a room in the back, paid him whatever he paid him per month. And it was ran like a club team. It was more like a fight club. It was not formal classes. He didn't have a BJJ background. He was a good fighter. But to illustrate that he's like submission grappler meets, kickboxing. And in that era where it was NHB, pancration, segueing into what people call MMA at the time. And I was there and went in and trained, and I was hooked. I already, no one had to like sell me on it. I already knew that I was going to like it. I was very intrigued by the Gracie family. In college, I had done a report on Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I didn't even know it was available to me, but I already knew I would like it. That's why I went. And
hey, can I ask you a question, just to give people some perspective here? November 12th, 1993, the first UFC, you said you watched it. How old were you?
Right. 93. I guess that would have made me 8 or 9 at the time.
So
yeah,
you literally grew up with this. That's what I wanted people to realize.
Yeah. Right. But UFC was not the introduction to combat sports. We watched the heavyweight pro boxing, or not just heavyweights, but like that was popular at the time, heavyweight pro boxing. You had the Tyson, and you had the Lennox Lewis, and, you had De La Hoya, and you had, whoever you want to say, like that was the guy at the time. And we watched everything from welterweight all the way up. And we were watching, like I said, the anything that had to do with these guys going like this, if I don't know what platforms this is going on, but if you didn't see it, my knuckles are pounding together, and we did that. That's what we did whenever it was like the summers with my dad or whatever, like that was what we did together.
That's super cool. Yeah, your dad raised you in a house of combat sports.
Right. Yeah. it was just what we were all into,
Are you big on pro wrestling too? You mentioned it?
Yeah, we liked that. It was just the generation. I was born in 84. My brother was born in 87, and we were brothers, and we were close enough in age to be fighting over everything. And we liked everything, Ninja Turtles and Power Rangers. And it was called WWF back then. It became WWE. And we wanted to, we drowned each other in the swimming pool, and we played with fake guns or Nerf guns, or we were killing each other, or everything was about some type of Van Damme movie, Steven Seagal movie, and then practicing those moves on one another. And we never did karate, but we wanted to, and we just found a way to do it on one another. But yeah, it was like me and my brother, like we couldn't get enough of it. And then when it was time to spend time with dad, and we would go see our dad for the summer or every other holiday, it was more welcomed in that household. And we were going to do it either way,
right.
whether our mom was trying to suppress it and make that be not so encouraged, or our dad wanted to encourage it. It was going to be done. So with the UFC, we got to see that. I have no idea, because when you look at the November timeline, I don't know why we were with our dad. You try to think of it like maybe it was a Thanksgiving. I don't know, but we were in Georgia at the time. And at that time, I think that I lived with our mom in Virginia or Maryland at the time. But for whatever reason, we were in Georgia when that happened, and we caught it, live. You punched in the number on the cable box, and that's we caught that first UFC.
That's super cool. So your first amateur fight was November 8th, 2003. It's called Total Velocity in the Valley. Miguel, this guy fights in a 4-man tournament his first time out.
What was it like to be a sports writer? To be there for historical moments and unforgettable performances? Oh, there are stories. I'm Todd Jones, recovering from 30 years as a sports writer. Join me on Pressbox Access. You'll hear from some of the best reporters and writers of the past 50 years about their experiences with the greatest athletes, coaches, and sports events. We tell stories behind the stories. Some we've only told each other. And there's some laughs, too. Let us buy you around on Pressbox Access.
Sure, why not?
Do you recall that, Cole?
Yeah, I can recall it, or I can recall the memory of recalling it, and I've been training like about 5 months, and maybe 5.5 months, something like that. And I got good fast. When I say good, it's relative, I think that I'm not any good now. So when I say good, I mean good enough to fight, had the fighter mentality. And my coach had full confidence in me. So I didn't think that there was any reason for me to not have confidence in me. It wasn't, sometimes people talk about like the nerve wrackingness or the adrenaline. It kind of just seemed like, this is what you're doing, and this is what you're supposed to do, and this is the outcome. And I didn't anticipate anything else other than to just go out and fight and win,
Yeah. Do you know what's crazy is, the way you came out in that first bout, your first opponent was Phillip Peterson, and you're really long and you know how to use your length and size. Like most people with your type of height and 135-pound weight, it takes a little adjustment for them to kind of grow into their body. And you came right out of the gate just throwing crazy kicks.
Yeah, that was it. My coach said, go out and head kick them as many times as you can until they're forced to take you down, and they're going to want nothing to do with your guard once you land on your back, so that was kind of it. Like in some ways it's kind of how things kind of come full circle. And, my natural instincts, like you're talking about, like knowing how to be long and stuff like that. It wasn't until I was taught to fear someone's takedown that I started to not fight long, because it was like concern from being on bottom. But back then it was just like full confidence, very much like probably what Charles Oliveira feels all the time, and kind of like the way that I feel now. That's kind of how I started feeling. It was like, oh, I'm just going to go in there, be long, kick this guy in the face. He's either going to get kicked in the head, or he's going to block it and it's going to hurt his arms, and eventually his arms will drop and a head kick will land, or he'll be forced to take me down and I probably won't even try to stop it, and I'll choke everybody. Like that was how I felt.
So is this your first combat experience, like in terms of competition? So yeah. The thing that I can't really get over, like the hump I have issues getting over, is it's your first time in a live combat experience. And it's a tournament. So you've got an adrenaline dump, you've got first time jitters. And after this first fight, you're going right back to the locker room to get ready for your second match.
Yeah, there wasn't adrenaline and there wasn't first time jitters. They're like, again, like I'm a very simple-minded individual. My coach said, this is what you're going to do and you're going to win. And this is going to be easy. And that's it. So like this guy who has experience in this world is telling me, who I trust, he wouldn't put me into fight if he thought I was going to get my ass kicked or make the team look bad or make him, you understand what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I'm young. I am impressionable. Ignorance is bliss. I've been not training very long, but I'm not a very confident person. But what I'm trying to illustrate to you is that there was a sense of truth coming from my instructor. I took what he said to be true. I had the logic that he would not put me in there to embarrass him. So I just knew that I was going to go in there and do what he said I would do. I was getting results in the training room, and I didn't know that I was from a super, super small team, or that we were, that it got to be as big as, I'll just say, American Top Team. I didn't understand the gap from where I was fighting to the highest level of fighting. I didn't understand what it felt like. So I just took, again, what my instructor was saying to be true. So I was in the back, just kind of calm and relaxed. And they were having to make me get ramped up or kick the pads hard, because I was just kind of waiting. And after the one fight, they went and they rushed in and it kind of picked me up. And I just said, put me down. My job's not done yet. And I just went to the back to wait for the next portion.
Okay. So so everybody at home, Phillip Peterson, I watched the fight. He is absolutely a game opponent. He really is. And, Cole goes through him fairly easily. And then he fights a very fast and he fights like another tough opponent in Joe Weldon. These are actually they're legitimately good first two fight matchups, and to have them in the same night, that's not an easy thing to accomplish. And do you recall the Joe Weldon fight?
Yeah, I think that Phillip Peterson had some prior amateur kickboxing fights, but he didn't have that. He didn't know he did, but he did not have the ground. But these guys were over 30 years old, and you're just stupid or ignorant. You're 19, you don't know anybody, you trust your coach. And Joel Weldon he was like construction worker strong. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just this wiry, wild, wacky, inflatable, two-man, skinny, very breakable person. But that was the first time somebody grabbed me. I had strong training partners, but you're in the fight, and this guy's just like stifling strong, that isometric construction worker type of strength. That's the first time I felt like that. That's why it kind of took me a little bit of time to wiggle into the triangle, because he was trying to stifle me. But I just remembering, that he didn't smell good, and he was very statically strong, Yeah,
it's crazy. It's crazy. So you walk out of there the winner. It's 2 fights one night. Your dad must have been beaming. He must have been so happy.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Went out there and did work. My brother was stoked. I had my cousins and one of my childhood friends came, and a couple other people, but it was, where was it? It was in Phoenix City, Alabama. And it was kind of funny because the fight was supposed to be in Columbus, Georgia, and Phoenix City, Alabama, Columbus are very close to each other. It's right at the border of Alabama and Georgia. And the day before, the weigh-in day, the people who had agreed to host the event, private venue or whatever it was, they thought it was like a martial arts tournament, and they found out what NHB was and MMA was, and they had the opinion that it wasn't Christian. And so they basically told the promoter to, this isn't happening. So the promoter, on the back end is frantically trying to find a spot, and they found a parks and recreation type of gym in Phoenix City, Alabama. And it, 250 people there. And there were some other really good people on the fight card. Master Jacare out of Atlanta, he had a few of his guys fighting. Rafael Asuncao, he fought on that card, or was it Rafael? I think it was Hafa.
It was Hafa, yeah.
Yeah, and then Ryan Ellison he was like a ranger who was just a beast of a guy. He fought one of my teammates, and he fought two times one night. And I can't remember, if Damian Stelly fought on that card or maybe it was just later cards, but he was another one of those savage like ranger guys that was produced by Jacare and Sergeant Matt Larson at the time.
So Miguel, you've obviously promoted on many different levels. That was a common occurrence in the regional scene, particularly here in the Midwest. Like the promoter would try to keep from the venue what was going on, and hopefully right after, see everything was fine, everything worked out, hopefully get another date. But if they found out ahead of time, I probably know like 20 off the top of my head events that were canceled because the venue found out what was taking place there. So pretty wild. You got kind of a quick turnaround, February 6, 2004, Submission Fighting Open. You fight in another 4-man tournament. The opponent in this is insane, though. It's Daizo Ishige from Japan.
Mm-hmm.
How does this fight line up? How do they bring in somebody for Japan to fight you?
Okay, so he was supposed to fight Junior Austin Sal, and my teammate Cliff Hagerman, who's my best friend, he recently passed, so rest in peace to him. He was supposed to fight this guy Brendan Dumont. Now Brendan Dumont was I didn't know him, but he was from a small gym called Taido, and Taido was a Atlanta-ish based school. I don't know if it was Norcross or Atlanta or Marietta, whatever, Metro Atlanta area. It was like a keto / judo school. And this guy Daizo was not from that gym. He was from Japan. He was there to help his uncle train for the summer. It was something like that, or not summer, but it was February, like you mentioned. But he was there for a short time to help his uncle just train some people in the school, see America for a little bit, and then go back home to Japan or whatever. And my friend Cliff pulled out, and they shifted Junior to fight Brendan Dumont at the 170 weight class. And then they took this guy, Daizo, who was supposed to fight Junior at 155, and they put him in a 145 tournament with me and the other guys, but they just changed the tournament to 155. And for us back then, nobody was like the guys are today. Let's just say nobody's a diva. Nobody's going to say, oh, a 10-pound difference. Nobody bitched back then, man. Like it was like, oh, we're just fighting now. It's 10 pounds. What's 10 pounds? I fight guys that are 205 in my gym every day. Like that was just the mentality to just illustrate the times. And that's how that fight came to be. And the promoter was my manager, and he always wanted to be that guy that gave his guy the hard fight first, so nobody could say that his guys were taken care of, which I think is fair. Maybe you don't give them the easy time, maybe you don't give them the hard time, you give them what's fair. So we didn't complain, and we knew the guy was a 5th degree judo black belt, 5th dan in judo.
Huge.
But as far as like what you could find on him, he had never fought in MMA or amateur judo. You couldn't at least find anything. If he had done anything, it would have been, in a gym. It would not and I'm sure he had prior training. He goes on to later be the King of Pancrase, and fought, Dan Hardy, and King of Pancrase is a big deal. I know that today that maybe our fans out there, they don't know what Pancrase
huge
was.
Deal.
They didn't understand that was a big deal. And
yeah.
He goes on later to make those accomplishments at like 170, I think. But he fought, and we went out, and I was just going to kick this guy in the head once again, throw bombs to his face, and I was just going to win. And this guy, he defended like an initial onslaught, and I think I fell down on a kick and got back up or whatever, and we engage in a clinch after I try to throw a right cross, and he gets double underhooks on me, and I'm so amateur, in skill, that I'm just like, keep the hips away. And that it was just in his wheelhouse, and he just hit me with basic ogoshi hip toss. And from there, I felt a pressure like I had never felt before, not even from my coach. And it was stifling top pressure. And he just systematically worked his way up the body and got an arm bar. And I wasn't going to tap. I was just going to like let it break. And Forrest Griffin, I was friends with Forrest. He's the guest referee, and my arm starts popping. He was kind of deciding whether he was going to step in and stop or not, but my arm starts to just go click, 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 click. And then, I kind of single tap or whatever, and then kind of said, yeah, okay, I agree that this thing is over. And I submitted, with shame,
So
but
he is from a gym called SK Absolute, which is a powerhouse gym in Japan. He later becomes Pancrase champion. I watched this fight. Obviously I knew who he was. I look up his record and I'm like, there is absolutely no way you can convince me that this is his first fight. Like, he's triangle defense, right? Everything.
Yeah. And then like, I think now he's part of the Triforce jiu-jitsu affiliation, which is, if you guys know, like the sport jiu-jitsu world, Triforce is like a very well-respected academy. I don't know what location or affiliation, is like if he's at the main school or not, but he obviously knows BJJ as well. It's cool, like how we've communicated via social media, even in recent years, just kind of like, we're not friends or whatever, but it's cool to be able to have like respect for somebody like that. And he looks back and he knew I went to some level of what would be deemed success in the MMA world. And we just kind of tip the caps to each other type of thing. And I think that's cool.
That's super cool. That's super cool. And I don't know, as a 19-year-old kid, how you handled that, but your coach has set up a fight immediately afterward. And who was managing you at this time?
My manager was Matthew Waller, and my coach was Cam McCarg, like still at Team Praxis. And what's funny? You say like they got me a fight like right away. I literally thought I should fight every month. And I got back in the gym on Monday with my jacked up arm, and I just was doing jabs and low kicks, and I had a ferocity. I was embarrassed in front of my hometown to submit, and the crowd was sold out at 2,000 people or whatever, and the fire marshal was turning people away at the door like that. This thing was like, this event was very well received. In the building that I graduated high school from, it was like, I felt shame for submitting. I should have let my arm break. I had such a hatred for myself that I just got back in right away. And we were talking about like a quick turnaround. I felt like it had been an eternity. I felt like they were holding me back for me to reach some level of maturity, but I was just like a pit bull that should have been let off the leash to just go ham on somebody, A
whole village. Right. So your quick turnaround, Miguel, another 4-man tournament, King of the Ring. This is for a title. I think Warren Varner was the promoter. Am I correct?
I can't say.
Okay.
It was, so I've been fighting at like 150, 155, but I was like probably 45, or I was walking around at like 150, 153 if I was bulking. And I cut from 53 to 135 pounds for a same day weigh-in. So I woke up that day and I cut the 135 on the dot for championship fight, and then fought that night twice.
So Daddy's fight team, very well known, obviously, sends one of his students, Nick Cottone, at you. So Nick ends his career at 10-3, always just on the bubble of being on the big show, but a very respected opponent through his career, for sure.
Yeah, and he was like we knew that he was like a Naga champ, and like back then that was like, he was the Naga expert national champ, like he went to the nationals, and that just kind of meant something. I'm not saying that he was Hani Yaya or whatever, but with my limited experience, again, I'm less than a year of training, and this guy is winning these types of divisions and things. It's like there was some level of like I felt like my team almost thought or accepted that I could be submitted. And I had like a chip on my shoulder, you know? And so I cut all that weight. I had a hard time with the rehydration. I went in there and just, you know, sprinted at him and threw a flying knee and got taken down and tapped him out hella fast, you know? It's like an emotional win, you know? Like I was like, I had that first like breakthrough of like tears, like of like emotion, you know, I'd never really felt that or had any type of thing. And I know that that was from that feeling of that some people on my team already were kind of preparing for the loss. And I was just more of like, not like a fuck you, but like maybe in some type of way, their opinion of me made me have that opinion of me. And I would have had that, like, I'm going to show them. And then having shown them and ultimately showing me, you know, that I could do that. And that I could tap a guy that was well-respected as a grappler, you know?
Well, I think sometimes you need to motivate yourself, and some people, they need different things to do that. You know, some people it's lots of praise and lots of praise. Other people it's, you know, swearing at themselves. Or another yourself proving something that you already knew about yourself to other people.
Yeah.
And you said it was kind of an emotional fight for you. Is that difficult to go back in there for another round of fighting after you've had that kind of emotional, just that damn break?
You know, I think the whole situation, again, 18 pounds for somebody who has such a small body fat percentage and doing it the wrong way, and just then fighting like a few hours later for free, but with pro rules and no protective equipment, for traveling to Virginia in a van that my mom let me borrow, all for a ringside belt that was worth $75. Like this is what we're fucking doing. This is what we're doing. Like there was no, man, like I know I'm not normal and I'm not trying to make myself sound superior to people, but at the time, the mentality was you're already fucking dead. So just go out there and fight. Fighters fight. This is what we do. You can't look for the easy out. You want the hard shit. You want the hard shit. Fucking give it to me. So like we kind of craved it. Like, so you're saying like, was it hard to do this? Like, maybe, but not to me.
Yeah, you know, that's
there was a lot of stuff that was hard to me. There was many things that were very hard to me, but not things that were about mental toughness. I was mentally tough.
You know, can you imagine if you would have wrestled in high school?
Man, I probably wouldn't have got it. Yeah, like I would have been mentally tough. I probably would have just sucked. You know what I mean? Like I see it, or it would have taken me a long time to be good. Like people talk about their nightmare was guys that were built like me, but then you ask guys that were built like me how long it took them before they finally got comfortable with their body or figured out how to wrestle. And it wasn't like a 2-year thing. It was like guys took a long time. They lost. They didn't win a match for 2 or 3 years, but then they started to get it. You know, I think I wouldn't have, I didn't even discover wrestling till too late, but I probably could have been good if I had 8 years of wrestling, you know. But if I would have like wrestled a couple years in high school, I would have been one of those winless kids, because those guys that are built like Chad Mendes just would have been, yeah, they just would have had the ease to find my hips, you know.
Well, now let me ask you too. You mentioned earlier in the interview that now, in retrospect, you see the level between where you were and really the top of the game. But you know, Cam McCarr is, I mean, you look at his Sherdog record or whatever, and he's got under 10 fights, but he was very, very serious in the day. You know what I mean? It's like you had good people there. You mentioned Forrest and stuff. When did you start to realize, you know, that you could hang with top shelf guys?
Right. I knew they were good. That but I didn't know that there was other things out there. I knew that Cam could tap anybody. I'm not saying like he could sweep or pass guard or, I won't say he's the most complete guy, but I knew he was a good fighter. And then I was cross training the Singer brothers. They ran a hardcore gym.
Rory.
And Rory and Adam Singer, yep. And Forrest trained with them at the time, and Forrest was the only guy that I knew who wanted to train twice a day. So when I wasn't going to college or whatever, I would drive the hour and a half to Athens, and me and Forrest would be doing sprints on the football field, or we would go unlock hardcore gym, and me and him would grapple each other. And again, about 100-pound difference between Forrest and I. And he worked me over, but like that was again part of the culture. Like nobody said, "Oh, I gotta train with my like top team now." Not saying the guys are not the same mindset. It's just different now with the exposure. You've got 30 guys from 135 to 155. No, beggars weren't. You couldn't be choosers. Like you had to work in the room with what you had. The big guys didn't make excuses, and the small guys didn't make excuses. You got tapped out or you got fucked up, and you had to get better, and that was it. And so Forrest and I would train, in the daytime, and then at nighttime, maybe I would train with the smaller guys that were part of hardcore gym. But I was grateful that they always welcomed me, in their home, but that was part of it. But to answer the question, like at what point I knew that I could hang, I always knew I could hang because my coach said that you could hang. Like I knew that this guy was good, and what he said was gospel. And then when I started to be able to hang with him in the gym, when Charles McCarthy came down and he was telling me that I had a lot of potential, and he was a guy that came from FFA, Freestyle Fighting Academy, with the Avalon brothers. And he was telling me, we got these guys you need to come train with, Georgie Masvidal, and what's his name? Enrique Coco. Like, he was like, these guys are like your size. And he's like, honestly, I think they can, beat you, but you can hang with them. And they are the thing on the grappling circuit. You should come cross train with them sometimes too. And so like, he started to take me to see what I thought was the next level. And I could see that it was within reach. So that was kind of the time around 04, maybe late 04, mid 04.
We're coming up on that right now. So yeah, it's right around there.
And McCarthy was already there for my first fight in 03, but I think what went mid 04 was when I took my first trip to Miami, and where I got to cross train with him. He later exposed me to Top Team when he made the change. But he introduced me to Marcos and Dave and Jorge Masvidal, and Enrique Coco and Efren Ruiz and Mike Cardoso. Some of these guys that were part of that FFA submission wrestling team.
So you also, like June 25th, 2004, you fought on Melvin Guillard's old manager's organization, Battle of New Orleans, against Gavin Murray. What was that experience like? Because Melvin has told me, we haven't had him on a podcast yet, but some just like cartoonishly funny stories in regards to that event.
I can only imagine this place, the main event, it was a bar, and people were smoking in the bar, and they're like right there on this in-ground ring. And then sometimes they had an area with a cage, and Gavin Murray was 16 years old and I'm like 20. And I just came off of winning the King of the Ring. And I was nervous for that fight because I was like, what type of 16-year-old would take a fight against me? I'm like, this kid has to be a submission fighting guru, or he must have the craziest. Come to find out, this guy, what was the promoter's name? What was it? Joe Ancona. Because the fight team was the Anaconda or something like that. But come to find out, this guy was just feeding his own guys to the wolves. But I trained harder for this fight than I thought was possible, because in my mind, I had a little bit of this like fear that this kid would either be submission wrestling wizard or he'd be an incredible boxer or something like that. It was just poor Gavin Murray. He was just getting fed by his manager and coach. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't know what illegal activities were happening behind the scenes. I can only predict a few, within this team. I don't know if it was a laundering type of thing, but I'm like, they had a fighter dormitory upstairs, and they had this sports bar type of thing where fights were happening downstairs, and very shady looking individuals that were attending these types of things. Like there was maybe some type of dealing of who knows what. I can speculate, but I would never say that for sure this or that was going on. But
Guillard,
yeah.
He said to me, he's like, yeah, there were some money issues. I had to go with my uncle. Essentially, Melvin went there with somebody with a couple guns and, got a little bit of money, what they thought was theirs. And just craziness.
Yeah, I spoke to Melvin. He was at Top Team for a minute, and I had seen him on some shows along the way whether he cornered a teammate on a show. I thought, and we were always very cool with one another, like just mutual respect. And I always liked Melvin. I always did. But we talked about that place, and there was like, I'll have, when you guys have him on, he'll have to be the one that shares the story. But it was, like you said, cartoonish. I think that's the most appropriate adjective for what was happening probably in his region at the time.
Yeah. Well, we're going to have Melvin on in the next couple of months. So, you're kind of rolling him out, and you stopped Gavin by KO. You're back at the submission fighting open. First off, how tall are you?
I'm 6'1",
so
you're 6'1 and a half or whatever, but under 6'2" for sure.
So you're just under 6'2", and you're fighting at 135 pounds. So
I fought at 35. Sorry to cut you off. I fought at 35 only once. Okay. That was the King of the Ring. The other times I was fighting at 55, or I was fighting at 45, or I was walking at 45, fighting at 55. I think I fought at 150. This little kind of, I'm like 145, but we got some other guys, and we're fighting at these little catch weights. But I fought at the SFO in another 4-man tournament, but I only fought once that night because the finalist on the other end received an injury.
Okay. You're not running into people your size, generally speaking.
That's correct. Anthony, I'm undersized, fighting at a higher weight.
Yes. Yeah. You're also championship height at 145. Like at 145, that's world title height. And Anthony LaPietra, he is as tall as you. And when you look at that fight, he is a specimen as well. Like using his legs.
He's jacked.
Dude,
he's jacked. Like his upper body had like bodybuilders attribute. His lower body was super skinny, but he was like pretty close to my height. That was the first time I ever saw anything like that.
All right. I think you derailed, like whatever happened, you obviously won that fight. This kid really had a future in MMA. When you see how he does against you, all he needs is just a little bit of polish, a little bit more time. He had a future in MMA, but he fights one more time, gets a win, and never fights again. And I think it was what took place in your bout with him.
Maybe, and maybe it was, we had all these a lot of the teams back then. It was, I don't want to overhype the word underground, but it wasn't what it is now with the structured training. A lot of these guys were learning from guys with a singular background, or they're going to one gym to do one thing, another gym to another, and there's no paying the bills. And who can say, maybe he started a family, or maybe he needed to work a construction job, or maybe it was a mental breakdown that he had that happened in the fight, and that was a loss of confidence. But at the time, nobody ever thought there could be a future, including myself, in fighting. Who was making money back then? Maybe nobody. Tito Ortiz, Rico Rodriguez, maybe, Minotauro Nogueira, Crow Cop, these guys in Pride. But we're talking about nobody that looks like me. That's for damn sure.
So it's incredible watching that fight. And when I'm watching you on top and I'm seeing him work his legs, he's being you against you. And
right.
I'm like,
yeah, very flexible.
Damn. No, a hell of a fight. So you rattle off armbar victory over him, triangle over Ashley Croft, triangle over Charles Nutt. You're wrecking people in like you haven't really hit the second round yet.
Right, that's correct. Yeah, just kind of breezing through. But no, actually, I had seen a 3-round fight. I had my good friend that I told you that had the black eyes in the bagel shop that we fought on a card. It's not on my record because they called it a quote exhibition. His opponent got injured and mine fucking no-showed. And we both trained for the fight, and he was a 185 walk around weight fighting at 170, and I was a 145er. We fought each other on this small show in Valdosta that had a patch in the center canvas of the ring where we had some other teammates fighting on that night. And we fought each other, and we just made a gentleman's agreement that he would give me time to tap to a heel hook, which he was good at. And I promised him I would not knee him in the face because I was like very set in that camp. But I have the footage. If you watched it, you realize we are not pulling punches. It's called an exhibition because it was the multiple weight classes. It would not be an official amateur record bout on that ISCF sanctioning body. But we really straight up fought each other, and it went the full distance. And if it goes that distance, you just call it a draw because it's an exhibition.
That's
cool.
A
fight that wasn't a fight. That's correct. So, but I did see that 3-round right there, but you're right. On everyone else that I fought, I got finished the one time in the first round. Everyone else I finished in the first round.
Yeah, quick too, like very little adversity. So you went 7-1 as an amateur, and you turned pro to 13.
8-1. 8-1 as an amateur.
Okay, I found 7. I absolutely believe you. 8-1 as an amateur.
You're refreshing my memory. So it was Phillip, Peterson, and Joel Weldon. I lost to Daizo Ishige. I had the King of the Ring with the where I fought twice, where I fought Nick Cottone and Blake Romano. And then I fought Gavin Murray, so we're at 5-1. And then I fought
LaPietra.
Anthony LaPietra, then Ashley Croft, and Charles Nutt. That's your 8 right there.
It is 8. You're right. Yeah, 8-1. 8-1.
And I had the draw with my teammate, so 8-1 and 1.
That's cool. You fought Full Throttle 2, June 3rd, 2005. Harris Norwood, he's from Eagle Combat Systems, super athletic guy. Your size is nightmarish for your opponents.
Yeah, he's a kickboxer, real good kickboxer. He's done like the Shidokan tournament that's like part full contact karate, part kickboxing, part MMA. Fought a lot of MMA fights. He lost to Daizo Ishige also he was the second fight that night that I lost to Daizo. Experienced guy, even if you look at like what he ended up doing, very like journeyman. And when I say journeyman, I mean what journeyman actually means. Not these guys will like in nowadays they'll be like a guy in the UFC is a journeyman. Like that's not what journeyman means.
No.
A journeyman, for you guys that know, but for maybe you have viewers who are more modern casual friends, journeyman meant it was a guy that would take the journey to fight anywhere against anybody, anytime, day or night, as long as there was some purse money. Didn't matter how good or how bad the guy was. He was the guy that would take the call. And it wasn't meant as a disrespect. It was meant to say out of respect and give
an honor.
Yeah, he was a journeyman. He might be a 45 and 35 guy, but he was a guy that he would answer the call. That's what journeyman means. And that's what Harris Norwood was. Okay. Just to give an illustration on this.
I actually match made Harris a couple of times down here in Costa Rica. So yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I was going to ask you in specific about him. I think Mike got to it first though. You talked about fighting long and that's really all you knew. Now Harris is pretty long, he's going to be about stature wise. Was he about your size? And what are you learning at this point?
He's like 5'10". He's like
Okay.
5'10", 5'11",
I'm
but
going off
more
of-
muscular because he's a man and I'm still undeveloped, I'm post-teen, but I just haven't quite got my growth spurt yet. And but he fights longer than me. He was the first real true striker that I faced. He calf kicked me a couple times, and this calf kick everybody talks about now. Mr. George Allen and Mr. Gary Brown, I think, of Eagle, they were doing calf kicks back then, and calf kick was an old technique to them back then. It was, I think I remember George Allen, who I ended up cross-training after I fought Harris with. I think he was saying that this was a kick from a martial art called Bondo, and this is a Bondo kick. And Harris kicked me with this a couple times, and then you can see in the fight, I just say, fuck this. And I basically just sprint him to initiate a clinch and then work the ground fight where I knew I was superior. But I went through this phase. I was getting some confidence after I had turned pro, and I was, or at that final amateur phase, I was starting to get where I felt like I was a decent boxer. Now, of course, that's with the training partners I had at the time who were not necessarily boxers, but I was really starting to feel some form of confidence. And Harris never really let me get to where I would touch him with my hands with these calf kicks he was throwing. So that was the first exposure where like, you're not fighting as long as you think you are. I got out of the fight quick with just a couple bruises on the calf, but that was already a valuable lesson that was gained, and kind of let me know you are a little bit more vulnerable and penetrable than you might think.
You blew me away there with the George Allen name too. I mean, that's an old school name from the 90s for sure. And you're right. One of those rugged stand-up guys that was definitely more than just a little box. Some guys had boxing. He was more than a boxer. He was almost like a Thai boxer. For the time, he was like what we would call a Thai boxer,
Yeah. And people in the Georgia MMA scene, guys like George Allen, everything like this is the guy that he was one of the true underground fighters, true NHB guys, went on to train the next generation. And now he's on the state athletic commission, refereeing and like doing what he can. He's always stayed a part of that martial arts scene and mixed martial arts scene. And even if the fighters of today like don't know, they owe what they're doing now to guys like that who didn't just fight and stop fighting, but help pave the way to help show these guys like this is what it means to not only this is how you train, but this is how you behave with honor and true warrior mentality. He would show up to events with his gear bag with that old school, maybe somebody will pull out and I can jump in and do it. Like that's the guys that I grew up respecting and wanted to have that same type of mentality. I always pictured myself as having like 100-something fights, kind of like a road warrior, because again, I knew that there was no money in fighting. I wanted to fight until somebody killed me in the cage. And I kind of got that die-hard warrior mentality from guys like my coach Cam and guys like George Allen and guys who were truly hard.
Like Joe Merritt. Do you remember Joe Merritt?
I remember the name. I don't know.
He was him and George and Joe Merritt used to come up to Indiana and fight on our show. And I kind of associate them together. But George, definitely hats off to him. Hello.
Yeah.
Right.
Hell yeah.
So what was your relationship like with the promoter, Brett Moses?
We are friends now. Back then, he was just a promoter fighter relationship. I'm sure he thought I was a good young kid or whatever and saw some talent and potential. Brett was a great promoter. That's another guy that Georgia owes a huge thing to. Took up all the financial risk, was promoting MMA at a heavy popular time, obviously. And he was putting guys like Rafael Assunção, Diego Lima, Matt Brown, myself, my brother, Brian Bowles, Jeff Bedard.
You guys had a cool scene, man. I think
he brought in guys to kick our asses to show that we were there with the next level, man. Like a lot of guys will only put local guys on local guys. Why? Because they know that that will make the most money, right? Because he was coming up in this era where it's like people were going to come watch the stars who were the ticket sellers. I was not a ticket seller. I was just a talented young local fighter who he would put on his cards. But he would bring in guys to make competitive fights, man, against the local talent. But all that was doing was giving us shine to show that in these other regional areas that Georgia had a good stable of crew. You understand what I'm saying? Like, he put Rory Singer on the show. He put Forrest Griffin on the show. Like, this guy Brett was putting on our guys to fight anyone from anywhere else, you know. And I got to meet some UFC guys and guys that, you know, were fighting, you know, later on, and then also who had fought before because Brett was bringing these guys on, or teammates of these guys on. It was just a really cool time and a cool scene, the Atlanta fight scene that Brett was really the king of. And later me and Brett go to become friends, but it was always I think a mutual respect, just fighter, promoter thing. And he and I grew close over the years, and he's one of the guys I still consider a friend. I still maintain a relationship, and I'm always down with whatever he's doing, and I owe him a lot.
So he had, I think it was Diego Lima, he had him and Matt Brown fight in a main event at one of his bouts.
Yeah. Yes. And Diego Saraiva, another local guy that fought in the UFC later. Like, we had a rich talent pool, but yeah. Luigi Fioravanti fought Tim Stout, who was a Tennessee fighter, but that southern thing, you know. Luigi Fioravanti came in and fought, like, Jorge Masvidal fought Rafael Assunção on a show. Like, what? Like, that's crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He had a knack for picking talent for sure. So you mentioned the definition of journeyman, and sometimes journeymen become front runners. They're front runners initially, and then they just can't get over a certain hump and they become journeymen. And we're saying that with the utmost respect when I mentioned your next opponent's name. July 15, 2005, Full Throttle 3, they brought in Chris Mickle, who he's so deceiving. We've had Clay Guida and Jeremy Stevens on this program. Both of them have said he's in the top 2 toughest opponents they've ever had.
Tough, right? Tough and gritty. You know, I would have made easy work of him if my good friend, guest referee, Forrest Griffin would not have fucked this up. Like, so I put this guy in a triangle. I scoop the leg with the deep angle, and it's night. This thing's about to be over. And this guy, Chris Mickle, tripods up, and while I'm underhooking the knee, drops the knee on my face. I'm still holding on. Like, this is not a thing. Like, I'm about to put him to sleep. And Forrest, stop, stands the guy up, gives him the warning or the 1 point, puts us back. And I'm like, what are you doing? I had him in a tryout. And I can see the oh shit in Forrest's face. And he's like, back up. And he's like, fight. It's like, he was like, oh shit, I fucked up. But let's not talk about it. Let's just, you guys got to keep going.
Right.
You know, and it's like, and that's.
And
like,
he never stood you up again. That was it. He was done for that fight. He was letting you guys go.
Well, he stood us up for the whole, like, warning or the point. Like,
but that was it.
That was a foul. But it's like, no, dude, he fouled me. If he escapes, like, we'll talk about it. But he was in the submission. It wasn't like he dropped the knee and my legs start to unlock or like my legs busted open and I'm holding my nose. Like, he drops the knee. I'm still underhooking the leg. Drop 5 more knees, motherfucker. Do all the illegal shit you want to do. Like, this is to the death. Like, I'm going to hold on to this. But he opened me up and stood us up. And it's like, you got to do what the guy says, you know. But, and that led to, on a hyperextended arm that I had in the guard. And he reels it back in. Mickle throws a knee, and it cracked a couple of my ribs. So that was like the adversity that I had to go through, you know, in that fight. It was still one-sided for the most part, as far as like him being on the defense or on the run for my attacks. But why that fight went all the way to the third round was after that triangle choke escape, at some point I popped Chris Mickle's arm, click, 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 click. And then he like reeled it back in and kneed me in the ribs from the armbar stack. And that crack in the ribs, that was the internal adversity I had to kind of overcome in that battle. But Chris Mickle, strong guy, tough guy, gritty guy, like got put in all the shit, had a never say die attitude till he said, say die, when I got him in the triangle choke and he tapped out in the third.
He was just defense, defense, defense. He had karate pants on. I think that was a part of his strategy. I never knew, because I've seen the guy fight at least a dozen times. And at this point, he's 10-2-2 with wins over 3 people that would go on to fight in the UFC. Like Chris Mickle, 3.
Yeah. It comes out in gi pants, but his hoodie had his wrestling high school on it. Isn't that hilarious?
I don't know what that was about.
I think it was probably like, this is still back when people would play mind games. And it was probably in some type of way, I can imagine, looking back now, that he wanted to get in my head to make me think like this is going to be an easy fight with a karate guy. You know, maybe I can only speculate. If I ever saw him, I might ask him that, you know. There was no beef between he and I, so I could maybe talk to him about something like that.
You know what's crazy? It's like John Strawn is his opponent or his teammate. So is Ted Worthington. Iowa kind of gets dumped on a lot because there's a lot of fly-by-night shows and tons of padded records. All you got to do is look up Travis Fulton to kind of get the gist of what was happening in Iowa. But you had pockets of really tough guys like Jeremy Stevens, we mentioned him earlier, Josh Neer, and then you had John Strawn, Ted Worthington, who's a journeyman, and Chris Mickle. Like, he was no joke, man. That was a hard fight.
Yeah, very physically demanding. That was that first fight for me that, you know, I know I had gone with my buddy and we were not pulling punches, but it was different. It was more like hard sparring with, you know, no protective equipment on, but when you fight someone and you're like, I'm going to kill this motherfucker, this is to the death. Like, that's a different type of violent intent. And he was that first guy that took me past that first round where I got a good look at what it felt like to have the sweat coming down your face and to just, you feel like you're starting to maybe get tired. And instead you just say, nah, like, I'm going to keep going, attack until you die or until they do. That's it.
Yeah, that's awesome. You have a follow-up with Tim Honeycutt. I've met this guy several times.
What a wacko.
Dude, go ahead. I'm glad. Go ahead.
Would just like the whole thing, and like, you know, he fought lots of good guys because he was like, how do you say it, man? He was cannon fodder, you know, like, you know, there's some other things that you could come up with too, but cannon fodder was it, you know, and but he would talk like, I fought so-and-so, like he was on the cusp of making it to the UFC. This is like the way he talks. And, you know, then he's out back, like, you know, with his crazy spouse or whatever, smoking cigs and just like, you know, doing whatever he's doing. And just like, I couldn't understand. It's like, guy, you're 1 or 2 and 17 or
he's Owen's like 17 or something like that.
Okay, yeah. Whatever he is, it's just like, how are you like talking like this? And why did some people keep showing up because they just got a warrior spirit? You know what I'm saying? They're just not with the right team, or maybe they're beasts in the gym, but under the lights they just can't put together maybe some stage fright or something. But then there's guys that's just like, you don't belong here, dog. Like, what do you like? It's almost like maybe like you need to see a brain trauma specialist to maybe rewire you, or maybe you're something off about you, you know. And that's kind of more the you know how some states implemented like you know, like they will suspend guys like that to where like you're no longer welcome to fight in our state out of protection for you because you are a liability to the state you're fighting in. That's because of guys like that.
Yeah. So Miguel, how many times as a promoter, like that fight was 23 seconds long. It was a KO. And like I said, I've seen Tim fight regionally 2-3 times. He's the guy that would go and find you right after the fight. Like, you saw what just took place. And then he would go, I didn't have a real good outing, but I had him like in this part, that part, and this part. You're like, it was like 15 seconds long. All right, what are you going to use me again? I was winning
until he got me. Yeah, I was winning the whole time until he got me.
And then he would demand another fight. How about a rematch? Like, it didn't even go 30 seconds. Yeah, but and I'm like, no. I mean, it's just, he was just out there. I smoking cigarettes.
A guy like that. Not a smoker, I think, but similar.
My wife's the corner person.
Shannon Rich is the guy that did that to me. So fought a guy in karate pants, lost to a guy in karate pants, and then proceeded to tell me he was winning the fight up until the moment he lost. And I was just like, okay, thank you. It's good.
You're always winning until you're losing. That's another funny thing about MMA guys who were like, let's run it back, or rematches. Like, I was winning until I was losing. When are you not winning until you're losing?
Cole, and this is way off topic. Whenever I read, like, he was partially clothed. Well, I've got a shirt on. I'm partially clothed. Like, not 100% of my body is clothed. It's just weird. Like, when you read shit like that. So Josh Odom is your next bout. So November 4th, 2005. Here's the thing about Josh Odom. One, he's 1-1 against you at this time. I've seen him fight live twice with the IFL, and he's impossible to finish. Incredibly tough, and he only fought tough guys. So you look at Odom, and he's got a 6-6 record at the end of his career. It is nowhere near telling of what a savage fighter Josh was.
Yeah, he's good athlete, and real good athlete. You could tell that he trained with a good school, good group of guys. Very, I'd just say well-rounded, educated fighter. Like, nobody was going to maybe put him in anything that he'd not seen, like he'd been there in the gym with the guys that knew what was going on in a respected team at the time. Of course, it's just like the fighter's outlook. Like, I really believe if I was in the right headspace and I was training like I should have been, I think I would have not only won, but like finished him. This is at that time where I'm at the point where me and my coach are very, like, I win some, he wins some. And I was a little young and dumb and a little too big for my britches, and kind of trying to tell maybe some of my teammates, like, hey, you shouldn't let him have full control over you. You should be fighting more. And I wasn't trying to create a dissension in the team, but I recognized that there was some cultish type of elements to the team at the time, and that our coach was trying to, have some type of ownership or control and suppress maybe the growth at the reasoning, so he could just be the man. You understand what I'm saying? I don't know his perspective, but I could see elements of that. And instead of, being a man and just kind of speaking, just being straight up with the coach and just trying to find out what it was before, I was like, hey man, like, I'm going to fight over here. I got you a fight or whatever, like that was kind of what was going on. So there was some frustration within the team, and me and my coach, we were just on the outs. I didn't feel good about I was not kicked out, but I didn't feel good about being the team because I could feel the tension in the atmosphere. And I think I trained twice, 2 days for that fight, and I still went all 3 rounds, but like, why? Maybe you can see like the level of attack against Chris Mickle. And then you kind of see me fighting Odom, although Odom was a very talented fighter. And maybe he would have, maybe if I was attacking in all this great shape, maybe I would have got over attacky and ran into a punch that would have knocked me out. I know that could have happened too, but I did only train 2 days for that fight. And the reason was because of the team thing that was going on, But Josh was very good. You are right.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no, for sure.
But I didn't feel any kind of way about losing that fight. Like, I was like, I trained twice for this fight. This guy, you know, majority decisions me. And yeah, like, I'll just, I'll go get a new team, or I'll start training for the next one and I'll fucking kill everybody. I was not like the way that I felt when Daizo beat me. I didn't feel super sad about it. I was like, I know I lost because I didn't train for it. That's it, you know?
Is this when you moved to the American Top Team?
What's the next fight?
David Love. That's probably it. Yeah.
Okay. So David Love, Charles McCarthy had gone to Top Team, and he invited me out to Top Team to see it. So my manager now is Charles McCarthy, and he got me a fight in Key West. So I flew to Miami or Lauderdale, wherever I flew into, and McCarthy picks me up at the airport and takes me to Top Team for like 3 or 4 days, the week of the fight. And I'm not sparring because it's like it's the week of the fight, and I'm not part of the team yet. But he's trying to recruit me and putting it in my ear, and I want to go. And it's like, wow, this guy over here is fighting in Pride. This guy's fighting in K1. This guy's fighting in the UFC. Like, I knew what Top Team was. No one had to introduce me who Laborio or Santiago or these guys who were fighting. You literally, I was watching all the MMA shows. I knew who everyone was. And but I got some pad time with Howard Davis Jr. I was off on the side grappling with, you know, Chris Manuel, who was very talented MMA fighter who fought in WC later, a lighter weight class guy. And I just really saw that was my first exposure to there is so much more you don't even fucking know. You want to talk about like red pill, you know, like I had a lot of confidence. I was winning rounds against my coach. I knew that there was a ceiling. I knew that Charles McCarthy was telling me that I thought FFA was the pinnacle of grappling. He was telling me that when he got to Top Team, that it was even more different. And that was coming from a guy who I knew was on another level of grappling. And I couldn't fathom it, and I had to go see it. And when I saw it, I was just like, holy hell, like this is where I gotta be. And so I trained that week there, just got some sessions in, and they were very welcoming, you know.
They were?
I won't say a lot. Yeah, I won't say once you got to the team and you're on the mat and you're actually sparring with the guys that is very welcoming. But as far as like, you're very welcome to be in the facility or roll with the guys, or Howard let me hit the pads because somebody with the team was vouching for me. You understand? That in that way, it was very welcoming. And I went and fought David Love. I was not Top Team yet, but that was I had been in the doors at Top Team, and I fought David Love, another Midwest guy, a journeyman, a guy out of respect. That said, and I TKO/KO him.
Okay,
knee to the face.
We need to talk about this fight. So David Love at this time is 3-5. He's fresh out of prison. He's somebody that's just doesn't want to go back, wants to do something with himself. He's a little bit older. After this fight, first off, he tears apart your leg with calf kicks from the beginning.
Yeah, he actually broke my leg later on. He broke it, and like I didn't know. I'm just fighting. I'm like, because every time I can feel that it's hurting and that you want to kind of not put weight on it, but I'm just like, no, bitch. You know, you're gonna walk forward.
So David Love, so people that don't know, he also became probably the top paid 145 pounder in the entire world when he was fighting for Miguel at BoDog Fight.
Yeah.
Miguel?
What did I pay him?
He fought Mike
He was getting
Brown,
paid
right?
like 20, 20, 25, 25, 30, 30. And at the time, that was the pinnacle for 145. Yeah.
Right? That's not true. No, that's not true.
Then you better talk to Chad Wagner.
Yeah, that's not true.
He fought Mike Brown, right? He fought Mike Brown on BoDog or WC. Where did he fight Mike Brown?
Probably fought him for me. I was a matchmaker for all that, and I know who made George Masvidal was making $25,000 a fight for me.
Yeah, and he fought. He fought Eve Edwards.
Yeah, George fought. I mean, George. I gave him a 4-fight $100,000 deal from where he came from, and if you look at the next 4 fights, it included Eve Edwards, it included people like that. So he was forced to do work. Yeah. Dave, I didn't have that money for 145, and Dave really, I love him, but I wasn't on that level. I may have thrown him $5,000 for a fight.
That's not what I was told.
Yeah, well,
I wish
some creative writing about that. That's why I guess, if there's talk like that going around, that like overspending stuff, there's usually a thought behind every expenditure. I may be right or wrong on the guy, but yeah, that's Dave's manager.
Exaggerating. Huh. Yeah, he was tough. Either way, the guy fought world-class talent. Cole, obviously you being one of them. He's 3-5 at the time, takes your loss and goes on a hell of a run. Like, he legitimately was at one point top 10 in the world at 145. It's just, he was limited on a skill set, and you exposed that.
Yeah, I think the grappling was just the issue. Like, he was the real strong guy, and first fight I ever felt slow, and not because I was sluggish, meaning that I'm just not fast. Like Dave Love, like he hit me with like those calf kicks when I was walking in, and then blitzed me with some uppercuts when I tried to clinch on him, and I had an improper head placement on the tie clinch. I had too much space, but man strength again. I'm still looking for the man strength. You know what I mean? Like, some people just you don't get it, or you get it too late. And he had it, and he was a man. And I'm just like a baby-faced, long-haired beanpole, but just like to the death. Like, I just always had that mentality. And then like after that fight, I go on back in the gym. I train like 2, 3, 4 weeks, and I go to my doctor at the time, the guy, Dr. John Keating, who big supporter of the Georgia fight scene. He was putting on some underground fights back in the day, and then he was the promoter of the martial arts reality super fighting event, the Mars event,
Mars.
that Renzo Gracie. Yeah,
so he had a lot to do with developing an early glove too.
Oh, okay, cool, good to know. But he was always very generous with his time, and I went to go see him, and he was like, "Yeah, you got a fracture in your leg."
Are you serious?
Yeah, he's like, yeah, your fibula is broken. That's why this bruise won't go away. It's not a bruise. It's a fracture in your leg. So Dave Love broke my leg, and I just kept marching forward.
He in that fight. All right, the fight game is about hammers and nails, obviously, and
yeah.
Up until this point, you haven't really shown that you were a really good nail. And David Love, you took some heavy punches.
Oh, to the head, yeah, and the calf kicks. Like, I already knew I was like this because of how we had been training in my gym at Team Praxis. Like, again, big guys facing little guys. And big glove training was more rare than small glove training in my gym. Like, you put the little foam Century slip-on shin guards. That was your shin support. Like, we just kicked each other's fucking asses all the time. Like, so not to say that fighting in the gym was the same as it was in the fight, but it was more close then than you see it being nowadays. And I'm not saying that then was better than now, but I'm just letting you know, like, the mentality that quote every day was a fight, like in the gym. That's what it was like back then. So I think having that exposure helped out.
Right around this time, the Ultimate Fighter kind of picked from certain camps. Like, certain camps they would call, who do you got? This is the weight, and we'll take whoever it is you have. Rob Kahn and Gracie Tampa fell into that category. They put like 6 guys on that show. And February 11, 2006, you fight a Rob Kahn student, Jarrett Becks, who's 5-3 at the time. And that Gracie Tampa, anybody coming out of there is legit. at this time?
This is my first fight at Top Team. I kind of had smoothed things over with my coach that was at Kamikard at Team Praxis. And we knew that I was moving to Florida full time, but I had still made some training trips, to Georgia, and I kind of co-represented for that fight and that fight only. But yeah, that was again, not an easy fight, because no fight is easy with all the work you put in, but it was a quick fight that I was very lucky to get out of unscathed and make quick work of a guy who was more skilled than I made him look.
Yeah, for sure. And Dwayne Shelton, which is your next bout, were you shocked that it took you so long to finish him?
Yeah. Okay. So this is where,
like a week later, it's in Virginia. Yeah.
Yeah. This is where my exposure to the UFC comes from. So Charles McCarthy had been trying to get me in the UFC, and they weren't sure what they were going to do with a 55 division, if they were going to delete it or it had been deleted and they brought it back, but I don't remember exactly where it was with the thing. And so he'd been trying to talk to Joe Silva, just get this guy in the show. And they're like, we, at 55, and I'm not a 55er. Once again, I'm walking around at like 152 pounds, but I fight anybody, whatever. And I get this opportunity to fight Dwayne Shelton in Richmond, Virginia, which is where Joe Silva lives. And Charles was trying to get me to fight on felony fights, or some other type of thing that would get me some, back then, viral clout, like if I was going to fight on felony fights against a felon and bare knuckle, around whoever was doing that thing, the Tap Out crew or whoever, I can't remember, like we were trying to find something big like this. And an opportunity came to fight Dwayne Shelton, real quick turnaround. And he was 0-2 as a pro, but had a good amateur kickboxing background and MMA background. But he had fought like Dean Thomas and
Tough
somebody
guy.
else. Was it Jeremy Stevens and Dean Thomas, or Dean Thomas? And it was 2 UFC vets that he fought in his opening pro fights. And I went down, I was like, oh yeah. Dean was like, hell yeah, just take this guy down or guard pull on him, fuck him up. I was like, oh yeah, this is gonna be an easy fight. And that's when like I saw another guy who he just didn't have any quit in him. He dropped me first time I ever dropped. I didn't fall backwards. Like I was storming him forward like a bum rush. And that's what bums do. Bums bum rush. And he clipped me with a counter right or left hook, whatever it was. And I hit a knee. And like he's standing over me throwing big hooks. He belly to bellied me like twice. And again, I just didn't have any man strength. And I still was just a boy fighting in there with men, very mature men. And I had no strength. What made me hard to fight was that I fought so much. Man, what are we 2 years in my career that we're talking about right now? And I got like 17 fights or something like that.
You fight a lot.
Like I just unrelenting pace. And this is what I want to do, is fight. And that's how I was always so composed. And this is where experience can help. Sometimes experience can hurt, but it was helpful here. And again, that mental toughness. And I'm like, I won't stop. And I end up mounting him several times. Rick McCoy, very talented, Virginia, old school guy. He's the ref. And I'd met him when I did the King of the Ring tournament as an amateur in Virginia Beach that we had mentioned earlier. He had stood us up a couple of times because Dwayne Shelton was so strong that from the bottom mount where he does like the double underhook grab, like I'm doing the cross facing, I'm doing all the stuff that should work, but I'm just so weak compared, and he's so strong. I couldn't break it, and I'm on mount, and he stood us up because of no action, and we're in Dwayne Shelton's hometown, and the boos and the jeers and the crowd. It's like he's at some point you got to stand the guys up. So he stands us up. I end up getting some takedown. At some point in the third round, I'm just dropping bombs on him with that, just no quit from mount. And he turns belly down and I get the rear naked choke. But mysteriously, the first 2 rounds are recorded, but the third round, where'd the missing third round go? There's no evidence of Cole just like putting the beat down on. Only the struggle of the grappling and the striking in the first too. Yeah,
And that would have been
his promoter.
Yeah, that was a conversation between him and the promoter going, yeah, why don't we just put it out there, just leave off the third round.
The promoder was his manager.
Right.
Yeah.
Rick
So I get to do a post-fight interview. I told, Mr. Joe Silva, I know you're in attendance out there. Love to talk to you after the fight. I know it wasn't like my best work, but I'll never quit. And I know I got things to work on, but I hope to be in the UFC one day, kind of like that, and I shook his hand. I got to talk to him. He's like, we'll be in touch, and that was where it's hard to get noticed back then if you can't be seen. And how are you going to be seen? Full Contact Fighter newsletter, somebody with some traction on the underground forum, or they actually get eyes on, or a videotape, like here's my audition tape kind of thing. Or unless you actually fight in the hometown of the UFC's matchmaker, and he's there to watch the hometown guy, but you end up, pulling an old switcheroo on him.
That's cool. But you mentioned Rick McCoy was the ref too. He's another one, like in my head, kind of like a Cam McCord guy, like a high skilled dude that didn't fight a lot, but like much respect from the old days. Yeah.
He's a guy I still get to keep in touch with, and his fighters do good too. And Virginia probably owes him a lot for the development of the scene and stepping it up. Yeah.
Mike, so, he was second in the running to fight Matt Hume for his last fight. I went with Payne Peters, but I thought Rick McCoy was better than Payne Peters, to be honest, with respect to both of them. I was going to try to slip him Rick if it didn't work out, but it's all history.
Yeah.
Sorry. It's back to Cole. Sorry.
Back to Cole Miller. Yeah. So Cole, you start traveling at this time, and like you said, it's hard to get eyes on people. So you start traveling and fighting in other people's hometowns, which is the easiest way to get your record beat up. Like if you're not the real deal, that's how you wind up with a lopsided record.
Yeah, one second, and then I'm gonna need to use the restroom for just a moment. But another funny thing about this fight with Dwayne Shelton was I was offered like 300 and 300 to fight Dwayne Shelton, and I could bring a corner, or I could fly there by myself and make like 800 and 800 with no cornerman. And know what I picked? I just went there by myself with no corner, and I picked this guy that was in the crowd before the fight, and I said, "Hey man, can you hold my bottle of water and just tell me when it's 3 minutes left, 2 minutes left, 1 minute left in the round? Can you do that for me?" Yeah, I'll leave you guys with that, and let me just use the restroom real quick.
All right, cool.
We'll pause on that. Cool.
All right, Miguel, you and I got a bone to pick, bro.
What's
David
that?
Love. Really?
Mike, if Chael Sonnen was making 25 grand, George Masvidal, Nick Thompson, Eddie Alvarez were making 25 grand. David Love is not in that equation.
All right, let me tell you something. Do you know how many people I've told that to? You and I talk almost daily. Or I shouldn't say, we talk multiple times daily. I have told that story for at least a decade. Minimum.
Yeah, I bet you Dave would tell you the truth. You got to corroborate. Chad forgets, or maybe there was a reason for him to try to, make it look like something it wasn't. Like, but no.
Okay.
No, I'm telling you.
Little side note for listeners at home. David Love was in jail for a little bit. He grew up in a really, really rough area in Indianapolis. After he got out of prison, joins a gym, completely turns his life around. He is now a teacher of mixed martial arts in Indiana, still giving back to the community. It's truly a story where somebody overcame incredible odds, made some mistakes in life, and learned from them, and is now pushing themselves.
Yeah, no. If I could have paid him that, I would have. If it came down to just like personal need and personal like, I mean, he's a really hardworking, easy guy to work with. I would have easily given if I had that money to give away, but it's not like that. You know what I mean? It wasn't like he might take money. I mean, here I can tell you some of the reward guys. Like, okay, Aaron Riley got
Pickett?
No, Pickett was making $2 to $3 grand.
He got one of the bonuses.
Yeah, but that's because he did the social media thing and blew everyone out. But that could have been anybody. I'm going to contract that. I'll tell you, Aaron Riley, I gave him 15 grand to fight Alvarez, and that was a big raise for him. And the guys I like Chael, George, Nick Thompson. There were a couple others. Anyway, he's back. So, but those guys got 4-fight deals, $100K.
So Cole, Miguel used to head up BoDog Fight as well as Euphoria, the MFC shows.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so like whenever we get guests on here, we always half the guests have either fought for them or had some sort of interaction. So you're kind of jet setting to other people's cities. Easiest way to get a beat up record, and they put you up against a pretty big ticket seller in Texas named Vince Libardi.
Yeah, and he was the first guy that like straight up mean mugged me in the stare down. But I was all about it, like you think you're hard, let's find out who's hard tomorrow, and kicked him in the fucking head and triangle choked him or guillotined him or whatever.
Yeah, dude, it was 16 seconds. Yeah. It was 16 seconds. And he was completely unconscious.
Yeah, and that guy ended up killing Sam Vasquez in the ring a couple years later.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Sam Vasquez.
Yeah. It's wild. It's wild, like the twists and turns that the MMA world goes down, and the people you encounter that you normally would never be connected in any other way. Like yourself and Daizo in Japan. It's just it's just incredible. So you go to Texas, you make a brief appearance there because it's 16 seconds long, and you're back fighting in Georgia again at full throttle. That promoter, like you said, he did you solids. He got you Joe Germain, another 36-second guillotine.
Iowa guy, and that guy would talk so much shit. He was like, but calm. Like we were signing contracts on like weigh-in day or whatever. And he's like, I'm gonna elbow this motherfucker's face into the fucking canvas. I was like, I'm right across the table. Like, you know what I mean?
Really?
That's the one thing I remember about that. Like, I like to tell like a little bit of the backstory. Like the fights are cool. You just get.
That's fun.
Well, that was a quick one. I mean, you're still on your less than one round routine.
Yeah. And
you go on to Diesel Fighting Championship, Sal Mitchell. I mean, you're back in Texas. He's from the academy in Minnesota, Greg Nelson's student, strong Greco-Roman wrestler. I thought this was actually your first. It was one of many tests. Chris Mickle was your first test, but this was definitely one of those humps that you had to climb.
Yeah, a Greg Nelson guy and Muay Thai guy. I know that later on he was part of that. I think he was part of the MTV Life, True Life, a Muay Thai fighter. Of course, who did they showcase? I think it was it Gina Carano or Rob McCullough was showcased, and somebody else was showcased.
Blonde.
He was
blonde from my area. She's from the Crystal Lake area.
Okay, but whatever. Whatever. It was like Rob McCullough and somebody else were the ones that actually got the TV time. But I guess it was several other people that were part of this thing. You know what I mean? And he actually went and did that, like the bare knuckle Thai fight too. I thought that was cool. But yeah, good Greco-Roman wrestler.
Yeah. Super tough cat. You moved to Florida right at this time, I believe.
I was already in Florida. I was.
So you would just go back and fight at home?
That's correct, because I already had the good relationship with Brett Moses, but I was already in Florida by the time I fought Jarrett Becks.
Wow. You take a last-minute fight against the Shudo world champion, Takaishi Inoue.
Yeah.
How does that come about?
I was a blue belt at the time. And what's my record now? Like as a pro, 8-1, 9-1, something like that.
And Inoue is 9-1 as well.
And he's world champ. He already had beat like Pequeño Nogueira or somebody like that. Maybe he goes to beat him later, but beat Antonio Carvalho or somebody who was already world champ, which is
he's a fight right before yours.
Yeah. So, and Carvalho was world champ before, and so he beat Carvalho. He was world champ. And that's like the pinnacle for what I was trying to do. I was trying to make it to Shudo. At this point, the UFC was cool. I'd already given up on it because it was like, to me, again, so much time had gone by when it's like no time at all. But like, I'm like, fuck that. I'm going to go fight for Shudo. I'm going to be Shudo world champ. This was like the first like confidence boosting fight. It was like on 5 or 7 days notice. I didn't have a passport.
Who fell off?
Got it. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I have no clue. But they called top team. What's her name? She's the go-between.
Motoko?
Motoko. So Motoko is the go-between for Shudo. She's talking to Laborio or whoever, or to Lambert, whoever, and they're talking to McCarthy. Then McCarthy, a lot of in between kind of conversation. And Motoko says, "This is the price. That's it." But they were asking like top team, like who's good but not too good, and they know, they're like, oh, we got a blue belt who's like 8-1, and they're like, blue belt, perfect. And like, I was only a blue belt because I had just started training true Brazilian jiu-jitsu, like in the gi. I was a white belt for like a month. I was a blue belt for like 10 months. And I was a pro belt for a year. I like went from white to brown in like 2.5 years because I had the prior submission grappling experience with Cam, but not jujitsu. But I wanted to be jujitsu black belt. So, but like, they were like, blue belt, perfect. And I went in there, I started like, I think I got 1-1 or no, 2,000 flat, maybe 2,000 flat to fight the world champ. And I got paid cash. And it was like, this is the price. There's no negotiating. This is the price. And so I was like, cool. That's
and
the most
7 days out, you find someone else.
It's the most money I'd ever been paid. And I was like, and I was fighting the world champ, but in a non-title fight, I was like, I'm going to go fuck this guy up. And then I'm going to get my title fight after I mop him up. And I mean, this is still back when they like, now Shudo has modern MMA rules, but back then, if you got a standing knockdown, they give you a 10-8 or a standing 8 count. And then if you got them in a submission, they would call catch. And that would be like a knockdown, equivalent of a knockdown. And I got him in a triangle with no catch called. And at one point I cracked him and he fell backward, but the rope kept him up. Like I was beating this dude up on the feet. I was just I was just socking him up. You can see me like whipping my hands around in the circle, like some Roy Jones Jr. type shit. And I'm just touching him and piecing him up. He didn't touch me on the feet because I've been working with Howard Davis a lot, and who taught me the art of boxing. And I started to finally come into my own after making a lot of tall guy mistakes. I started finally coming to my own, and I was like, oh, he's about to get pieced up. And I know what tall guys do because I'm a tall guy. They rely on being the tall guy. So you got a 5'10" world champion there against a new 6'1" guy who knew how to use his range. As far as for striking, knew how to use his range. I still had not figured out how to stop takedowns yet. But I was piecing him up. And then on the ground, I had some close submission attempts. And then, he wins the decision, of course. I thought it should have been a draw, especially with the educated referee.
Yeah, but they weren't calling catches on you. So
yeah,
the table was tilted.
100%. So whatever, I take the loss. But
let me explain this. Whenever there's a close submission in Shudo, the referee will signal a C with one of their hands, and it essentially means deduct a point from the person that's in a less dominant position. They do it with knockdowns and almost people that are almost submitted. So
Right.
it's like a 10-8 round.
Right. And I wasn't getting no love from that. And the ropes held him up on that knockdown I was like about to get. And it was just like, but after that fight, he deviated my septum. So my nose looked perfect. But on the inside of my face with the ground and pound punches, I got a broken nose. I had some blood draining my throat, but I was beaming, like ear to ear smiles after that. Cause on the way home, it was like, you belong at the world-class top echelon of 145-pound fighters, you know? And so like that, for that, at that moment, it was confidence full send. Cause I knew I was in a point of growth. And I'm like the Diaz brothers in a lot of ways. There are many similarities between us. And for me, I was like, all you motherfuckers are just going to decision me. I know that in the fight to the death, I would tap all y'all out. If there wasn't that, it was like to the finish, I'm going to come out on top every time. So you keep winning these little hometown Japanese judges decisions. When I finally hit my mark, I'm going to be beating all of y'all, you know, but because I was so competitive with the world champ for my weight class at the time, who was ranked, I think it was like number 1 or number 2, like in all organizations, you know what I'm saying? Like, who was the people back then? It was like Brian Geraghty was a top 145 or a couple other guys at 45, but it was Pequeño Nogueira and the Lion Takeshi in a way, you know.
How was the travel? How was the jet lag? Because now you're I mean, you lost the fight. You're 0-2 against fighters from Japan. I wasn't sure if it was just like your style of jiu-jitsu. But
no, because these two guys were different. Like the guy, when I fought Daizo, I just wasn't ready for him. I wasn't ready. You know, like he was leaps and bounds beyond what my capabilities were. And that's just it. With Takeshi, maybe there was some jet lag. I don't know. Like I never made an excuse back then. It's the deck is stacked against you, but you go there knowing that. So it's like, don't make any excuses. Like go in there, either kill him or know that they're going to raise his hand. But I was like, just, and you get flown in, you land at like 10 p.m. or you get in your hotel at like 10 p.m. and the weight cut starts the next morning, you know, like there's nothing that's being done that's for you. You know,
you get bloated too by the elevation and travel.
I don't know. I've heard that, but I didn't know that stuff. You just go in and you make the weight. You just do your job.
This was your first big trip, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So, was any culture shock? I mean, you obviously seem like a grounded guy now, but like when you were a kid, you know, it's a long way from Tokyo to that Alabama-Georgia border.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, like I was kind of culture shocked. I had like a tourist mindset. Yeah. You know, like I'm taking pictures on the roll camera, the disposable style. And then I think I had a little Motorola phone with, pixelated photos, took a couple on that, but I'm so happy to be there, you know. Now I know I'm going to kick his ass, but I am happy to be there, you know, and I'm taking it all in and I'm like, this is so cool. Like, I know I'm not in pride because I'm a small guy, but like, I'm like, man, this is as big as it gets, you know, and I'm not being treated like royalty at all. You know, I'm brought in 5 hours before weight cut time starts. And, you know, you're kind of coming here to go in there and it's like, get in and get out. But I thought that was probably the coolest trip.
Yeah. And, you know, I think the mistake that they may have made picking yourself is you're in shape because you're training full time.
Yeah. And just
they're hoping for somebody a little out of shape.
There we go. Yeah. So I think so too. And I think that they didn't think that I was going to be as skilled I was to fight the champ. And they just needed something done last minute because this guy was the poster child for their organization at the time as being champ. And they just didn't think I'd be as good as I was. You know, I think that guy also expected that too, because a guy that was known as a boxer who knocked people out, I outboxed this guy and he got by on taking me down and keeping me on my back and making sure that there was no way I could
Stalling.
tap him out. That
Stalling.
right, you know. Yeah.
Yeah. That was, dude, it was a fun fight to watch. Your next bout is for AFC 19, October 21st, 2006. I meant to drop something when we talked about David Love. Are you aware that American Top Team member Carlos Diaz was in David Love's corner?
Was he for that fight?
He was for that fight. Yeah.
I don't remember that.
Carlos didn't either. I sent him to fight. Yeah.
I believe you. If you have footage, I believe you. Oh wait, that's because I was not top team yet. That was where I got invited to top team that week.
Yes.
And I was there that week, and I was Charles McCarthy's guy, but I was not top team. But yeah, I get it.
So in Chad Wagner, Carlos Diaz, Chad Wagner, and myself, we would jet set to multiple different countries helping Miguel out at his different events. So we all knew each other. And it was like, yeah, I need somebody to help. And I'm like, I called Carlos Diaz. I go, did you train David Love against Cole Miller? He's like, no. He's like, I don't think I was there. I sent him the footage. He's like, holy shit, I was cornering him.
Yeah, that's hilarious. That is great.
Yeah. So
That's
I think
great.
he was the matchmaker for AFC at this time. They bring in a 33-7 John Strawn from Iowa.
Yep.
October 21st, 2006.
Yeah, tough guy. It's so funny. Like, some guys' capabilities. I end up taking him down. He ends up sweeping me with an omoplata. Just knowing like what our backgrounds are and like where he came up and maybe like his wrestling background and just the style of MMA that's fought in the Midwest, and then knowing what I do, you'd be like, no, John took him down and Cole swept him with omoplata. I thought that was funny, But when I got put on my back, I was like, okay, time to get this guy out of here. Just super quick triangle.
Your size and length was nightmarish for your opponents. And right around this time, like I'm a Midwest guy, I'm Chicago. So anything in Indianapolis, I was in either Minnesota, Ohio, Indianapolis, Iowa, Indiana, and Wisconsin around this time. And there was a lot of phone calls being made about yourself stating, he just needs one more fight. He's going to the UFC. And they flew you into Indianapolis Legends of Fighting 10 to fight Josh Sauter. I was actually at this fight.
Yeah, that was a cool experience. Like my brother had a relationship with
McCorkle.
Nah, yeah, but he was the promoter. What is the match?
Mike Camp?
Mike Camp. He loved my brother, man. Loved my brother. And what was wasn't Sean McCorkle, was his brother? Scott. Sean. Okay. Yeah. And so like that was but
they did a ton of fights, man. Yeah.
And I had already had a couple fights where I was supposed to fight for them where they didn't happen. Like I was going to fight Jaleel Masu.
Yeah.
I was going to fight him. That didn't
future
happen.
WEC veteran.
I fought Josh Sauter, one of George Gurgil's guys, and then I was supposed to fight Dustin Hazlett, and I got picked up on TUF. But yeah, like that area had some dope guys, and the fight with Josh Sauter was he was a guy who was probably the most well-rounded fighter I have ever fought. He had good boxing, that powerhouse style boxing. He could wrestle, and he was pro belt in jiu-jitsu. I was pro belt in jiu-jitsu. And he was a dog. He was very game. And I remember like thinking that I lost that fight. Like after the fight, like I kind of had some, woe is me, I don't deserve this thing. And then like I go back and watch the fight, and I can see the nonstop attacking, and I can see where he's like, let's say he gets a takedown, but it's a takedown out of getting punched and kicked, or it's elbows in, or it's a stand back up out of him getting put in some type of submission. So I can see like how I got the nod, like after watching it on tape, but I could see the guys making either decision depending on like how educated you are as a referee. If you want to say that top is the top guy always wins no matter what. I lacerated his eyebrow from the bottom. It's pretty cool. It's actually a technique that I would do. I'd have the collar and I put like the foot on the hip and the shin on the inside of the bicep. And it's common for a guy to roll their shoulder back to the inside to just put themselves back in a complete full guard. And when they have to make that shoulder roll, I just let go and I throw the bow. And I just remember that was one cool thing I had done in that fight. That doesn't look, you wouldn't even notice it on camera. Again, no one notices anything the bottom guy does on camera unless it's putting somebody out in a full submission. But it was a cool little ground and pound technique that I was doing at the time.
So Sutter, you win a split decision and you get called to the Ultimate Fighter. So Brian Geraghty's been on this program. He's a pretty good friend of mine. Like I've known the guy for almost 20 years now. And
love that guy.
He would always say, like when he got back from the house, I go, hey, you can't tell us the winner. Who'd you hang out with? He goes, Nate Diaz, Cole Miller, and myself. We just stuck with each other and we didn't really mess with anyone else.
Bro, man. And what a great guy, funny guy, a lot of personality, the kind of guy that just nobody was happy to be there. Okay.
He was the only one.
Well, a lot of people, they didn't want to be there, but they needed to be there. And the no contact with the outside world and everyone's feeling down, Brian would always bring you back up. You know what I mean? Like, so he was dope in that way and a very good fighter. And I've told him, we've had conversations about this after the fact. You know, you get the Full Contact Fighter newsletter and the top 5 and guys like in the country of the world, Brian Geraghty's on that list. The Ultimate Fighter, for him to get the shine that he needed and for people to know how good he was, probably needed to have been 3 years or 4 years earlier. And he could have won the show, you know, or if 145 would have been a division of notoriety where people wanted to see the guys maybe 2 years prior, he probably could have been the guy. You know,
title contender minimally. Yeah.
That conversation didn't happen out of it wasn't my time. It wasn't like that. It's just like, you know, man, like if things were just a little different, you know, this would have, you know, like it was, I think it was me that brought it up, not him, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So you go to the show, you fight Alan Berube, another Rob Kahn guy. I think it's the third Rob Kahn student that you had fought at this point.
I never put that together. I never knew that till you said it just now. Yeah.
So you get through Berube, 226 triangle, and then you do show loves on.
Life changing. Yeah, but beating Berube was life changing. Like it was just like, you know, that if you win a fight, you know you'll be fighting on the finale. You know, like if you win the first fight, maybe you won't, maybe you lose the next fight, but you might not be obviously in the finale, but you'll be on the finale card. So you'll actually have an official UFC fight if you win your first fight on TUF. And it's like, that was huge to just get that win over Berube. And then Joe Lozon fight that happened. It was a pretty cool little grappling fight, got a cool kick, back take, he gets on top, trades some positions. He puts me up against the wall. You know, then there's that illegal elbow on the back of the head, unintentional. It just happened. I don't really remember it. This is all just from like watching the footage. I definitely had a concussion. Then you come out, you don't look so hot, get fucked up, and then that's that. You know. Yeah.
So that's that is your entire walk up into the UFC. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Would you mind fielding other questions? You got a little bit more time?
I'm here for you guys.
Oh, my man. All right. Frank Bishop. See, your name came out of 3 people's mouths. Brian Geraghty calls me up because he listens. He goes, you got to get Cole. You got to get Cole. Carlos Diaz. I'm like, hey, man, give me some American top team guys that, you know, are free to talk. You know, they got a lot of personality. He's like, dude, top of my list, Cole Miller. Frank Bishop as well. You mentioned you're obviously a historian like ourselves. How important to the scene, the mixed martial arts scene, were the contributions of Frank Bishop, in your opinion?
You mean Frank is cool?
Frank is cool, baby.
Frank is cool. Yeah, dude. I mean, like, he was one of the, he's a ride or die hardcore gym guy, you know, is always there with like the Singer brothers and you know, Forrest, Griffin, and always supported that team, but also supported just like the MMA scene and making stuff happen, being the manager for those guys. And then on the underground, Frank is cool, you know, a huge contributor just for MMA in general. Like, just you talk about like being a historian, like if you know who Frank is cool is, like you know that he was one of the real ones.
Yeah. You know, like when I first saw his screen name, I'm like, oh, this dude's got to be a dick. And then I'm like, I talked to him, like, he's actually legitimately really cool.
Frank is cool.
Like he's actually a really cool guy.
Yeah, agreed.
An American Top Team. Were you there when Thiago Santos barricaded himself in the gym?
Yeah, I mean, I was on site. Hold on. I was on site at Top Team from November, December of 2005 all the way till 17. But he barricaded himself in his house, not like in the gym. But yeah, he barricaded himself in his home. But yeah, I was in South Florida when all that happened. Yeah.
What was it like having him in the gym?
Man, like, first off, I liked him, and I liked a lot of people that were not liked or had, you know, a cloud around them. But that was because I never let myself get close enough to those people to feel their wrath or their insanity or whatever it was. You know what I'm saying? Like, I made sure to steer clear of that. You know, when there's some people you can look at, right, and you know that they're insane. You know that they have no respect for civility or the law. You know, like for me, you walk around like somebody, for instance, they come in my gym and they tell me I'm a piece of shit, right? I don't punch them in the fucking face because I don't want to go to jail, you know? But you can look at certain people and you just know this guy, he is marching to the beat of his own drum and cares nothing about the law or whatever it is, right? And you know, he had his wife in the gym all the time, and very, you know, hot lady or whatever, and she'd wear like the Brazilian outfits, the workout outfits that would just highlight her attributes. But sometimes guys would say something, I fucking kept my head down and looked at the fucking floor because you could just see the eye in this guy, that he just like, if you cross him or he got you looking, maybe you get socked one clean time. Now, nothing like that ever happened, but I just always had a fear that something like that would happen. And,
it was on a tape.
But right, yeah. And the guy just looks like a killer. The guy's in the UFC just like killing people too, you know. And yeah, that was crazy. I don't know that he was part of ATT when that moment happened, or if he had already left. I can't
that was
exactly.
The reason.
Maybe that was the reason. I can't remember, but I remember like training with him. Like he was very good in the gi. Like a lot of these MMA guys, their jiu-jitsu, maybe they had roots in jiu-jitsu, but once they get into MMA, they don't do jiu-jitsu so good, or they put the gi on and they just are trash. And I just remember like he was a good training partner. He was a lot better than me, 205er, but I got to roll with him a few times. And he was sharp in the gi. I think he was a Robinho guy or Hobson Mora guy. I think that's who he got his black belt under. A very good gi grappler. When you think about him, you think about his striking, or, you know, that he was just an assassin as far as top game on the ground. Very good guard, very talented.
So let me, you've been at Top Team. You said you were there 12 years. So
yeah, like on site. I'm still a Top Team guy forever. You know what I mean? But like I was on site there. Yeah.
So we got it down to like a top three, but we need you to put them in order for us here. So the craziest, is it Munson? Is it Thiago? Is it Hector? Lombard? I mean, or is it an X Factor? Is there another guy there that we're missing? Help us out.
I'll just say there's no other X Factor that you're missing, but
Okay.
I would hate
that
to
three's good enough.
The fact that you just said those three means that I didn't have to, and that's it. We're just gonna move on.
you value your life.
Yeah, they're all much bigger than you too. I understand. You know,
But you know what? I like all those guys as far as just like this type of platform. Like I don't know all of those guys like on a deep level, friendly level, like mixed martial arts level. Again, never let myself get too close. I don't know their hopes and dreams, or I don't go to summer cookouts with their kids. But I like those guys. They're all right.
Yeah.
We had Dennis Hallman on. First up, like Aaron Riley comes in at the very end of his interview. We just said, tell us about Jeff Monson. He tells us some of these stories that had us for like, it was the goodbye portion of the interview. It extended the interview about another 45 minutes. Then we get Jeff on, and he just not only admits to everything, but just goes, he adds to it. It was much worse actually. And Dennis Hallman, Dennis Hallman at the very end of his interview with us says, yeah, he used to shoot urine into his bladder so he could pass piss test for the state.
I heard that he had like, it was called the Whizzer, and it was like a fake dick that had a like a colostomy bag or something attached to it, and you would pull this dick out and it had a tube that ran into a plastic bag, and it would have clean urine in the bag. So when these guys like came, that you'd squeeze the dick and the urine would come up, but it wasn't his. I heard that. I can't confirm that.
He admitted to that. He admitted to it.
He fought a UFC title fight wearing that.
Yeah.
That's why I think Munson really, I think I'm going to put Jeff number one here, because you ask Hector Lombard, it's like, hey, what happened with Josh Barnett? And he'd be like, nothing really happened. He didn't want to talk about it. But there was nothing Munson didn't want to talk about. He was like, yeah, that happened. Yeah, it's true. So that's just my personal opinion.
Hell yeah, Miguel. But there's just like that old saying, like what happens in the gym stays in the gym. Like that's more. If you have a normal gym, the only thing that could be happening is just the sparring, right? And so like you don't talk about it because like it doesn't matter who wins in training or loses in training or whatever. But you know what? I would just say like what happens in the gym stays in the gym also goes for what actually happened in the gym.
Yeah. Aaron Riley's like, yeah, he punched Jay-Z one time. Hector Lombard punched, no reason. All right, you rolled with a couple guys. We've mentioned them. Thoughts on Clay Guida?
I love Clay Guida, man. Like this guy is standing the test of time, man. Like how do you? He's always been a very charismatic guy. One of those people that like. You're proud to say like that guy's my friend, or even if you're not friends, you want to say that you guys are friends not because he has clout, but because his personality is just the kind of guy that you want to be associated with. Positivity, uplifting. Not only is he very skilled at what he does, but what do you call he's a chameleon in a way. Like he's such a well-rounded person. He can float between different types of crowds or crews and still belong in those groups. So I like Clay a lot as a person. Of course, he's a great fighter. You can't say enough about the things that he's accomplished and the types of wars that he's been in, and how he keeps finding a way to push, and the ways that he's lined himself up for success and in a business type of way is just like, good for you, dude. Good for you.
All right. I know you traveled to train with the Diaz brothers. What was that experience like?
Yeah, we did a couple camps there. I think for a couple of my UFC fights, I did like a mini camp with the Diaz brothers because me and Nate were on the same card. And then we went out to help Nick train for Carlos Condit, kind of like a similar body type. We were smaller, but that's where like Joe Schilling had first started sparring with Nick. But we went to help Nick out there. Just like one of those friendships you maintain. Maybe you don't see these guys all the time, but when you do, like if you're in the same city, you link up. And we try to go out there. We train, like, when we were going there, we bounce around. We went to the boxing gyms they were training at. We went to, I think it was Antioch, where Caesar's school is. Then we go to the Diaz Brothers schools. That we went to the one in Stockton. Then we went to the one in Lodi.
Did you box with Andre Ward?
No.
Okay.
No, there was a couple boxing gyms that they go to, but one was the one where Andre Ward went to. But they had another one that they did that was a little closer to their house. That's where I went to.
Did you stay with them or did you crash at the gym?
No, we stayed with them.
What was that experience like?
It was cool. It's just like, honestly, it's just like me and Micah. It's like maybe California, of course, California, and there's more weed, but like that's not really my thing. But other than like the weed, it's just like being at Cole and Micah's house. It's like you play them video games. So they're playing Street Fighter, and at my house we were playing Rock Band at all hours of the night. Or you're going to work out, you're coming to eat and recover from working out, you're showering, you're going to work out again. That's literally all we did, and that's all they did. So it was, I'll tell you a fun story though. But overall, like that was the environment. You were just working out or recovering between working out. They were literally very dedicated to what they did. Wasn't any partying. Me and Micah didn't give a shit about that anyways. We're trying to win fights. And we had the similar mindset that like fighters don't sell tickets. Fighters don't go out and get pink hair and get crazy sponsors and do commercials or show up to after parties or pre-party. What you need to do is you need to be training. So like we kind of related with that outlook. And so we did some cross training with those guys. And but a funny story about what was it like. The first trip that we went out there, we've done a couple, like me and Mike had never did anything. We went and did a couple triathlons, some small ones. They're called sprint distance, but we went and did those. Well, in between one and the other, we were outside their house and they were downstairs, or they had all gone to lift weights at like 10 o'clock at night, or they were downstairs already at home. You know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, I think that Nick was home, but Nate was lifting weights, something like that. But we hear a pop, pop, pop. And me and Micah are upstairs. Like we're in the, we'll call it like the guest loft or whatever. We're in like a living area, and it's like Nick and Nate, and he had a couple of friends, and their mom, I think, was staying with them. And it was like Nick had some success, and he'd gotten them this like 5 or 6 bedroom house. And here, pop, pop, and psh, psh, like glass shattering. And like Micah's like, what was that? And I'm just like typing on my computer. I'm like, I don't know, probably somebody shot something or whatever. And like Micah's like, for real? So we get up and we like look through the blinds, and you can see like this guy like running away or whatever. He had taken a baseball bat to the truck that was Nick's neighbor. Boom, boom. And then he shot the car, like the truck. He just shot the truck up. And like, I want to say it was a cul-de-sac, but it was within, I could see it, And then I just sat back down, and I went back to getting on the computer, like I'm just disconnected. And then Michael's like, oh man, that's crazy. I'm like, yeah, dude. And I'm just like, we're watching movies and I'm on the computer. And the next morning, I'm looking for those guys like Nick and Nate, but they're outside. And I walk outside and they're talking with the neighbor. It's sunny outside. And the neighbor's like, damn, dude. And Nick's like walking back to the door, and Nick's like, man, somebody fucking shot his truck up. I'm like, yeah, dude, me and Micah saw that shit last night. And Nick was like, why didn't you call the cops? And I'm like, I was just like, I thought that's just what happened in Stockton.
You're too gangster for Stockton, bro.
Bro, I mean, like, I just was like, oh, that's just what happens here. Like, I wasn't like in fear, like, oh, like, oh, I should call the cops. Gunshots went off. I'm just watching the movie and like pop, pop, pop.
Like, I don't know the Diaz brothers, but I'd be afraid to like bring the cops over to their house too. Like, it's like, is that, I don't know. They might be kosher with it because sometimes they surprise you, but I wouldn't do that. I think you're right.
Well, like it happened. I just was like, oh, I just thought it was what happened here. Like I was like more of out of like a cultural type of respect. Like I'm not gonna, be a snitch or like, but like I can see that like people, and sometimes you need to call the police. Love the police, but sometimes if it's not your business, you should mind your own business, right? And like
don't get hurt.
And I could see, we saw, it's not like he shot somebody or somebody was in the car. We could clearly see this guy just vandalizing this vehicle. And I was like, oh, it looks like that's what they do here, you know? And so I just went back to minding my own business.
So Cole, when we interviewed Brian Geraghty, he goes, I got a crazy Diaz Brothers story. And we're like, okay, well, what's up? He goes, Nate got a new car from a dealership. He was so happy. He got a brand new car. I fly out there and he comes to pick me up and we're in like a minivan, like, you know, just kind of like an old minivan. I just figured he'd want to show off his car. So I said, hey, Nate, where's your car at? And he goes, well, what had happened was somebody thought it was my neighbor's car and they shot it up. So that neighbor lost cars regularly.
And Nate had this old car, like this, I don't remember if it was like a 1980 Civic or if it was like a Geo Metro. I want to say it was like I can't remember, but it was like, I feel like a hatchback vehicle. I remember us riding by the car, or an Accord, an old Accord, but I could see us, like we rode by, it's like, that was my car. Like, and he somehow found like somebody within the neighborhood to like sell it to, you know? I was like, damn, dude, that thing got shot up. He's like, yeah, I sold it shot up.
Hey, I got a little more technical questions here as we wind down, because, first of all, pleasure to meet you. And I've noticed throughout the conversation you're good with names, and you're also good with technique, guys. From Jacare to Hobson Mora, you're wearing a Marcelo Garcia shirt. You talked about Master Laborio. Why don't you give me? I'm going to ask you for another top three. How about your top three jiu-jitsu guys?
If we were talking about ability, I would probably say Liborio, Bruno Malfacini, and Marcelo Garcia.
Wow.
Yeah, Marcelo.
Guys, not my top three of who I watch on videos, but the top guys I have rolled with. I think those would be my top three.
Okay.
Yeah. Who said? Aaron Riley said he saw Liborio fold Jeff Monson. I can't even imagine what that looks like.
I've seen Liborio fold up a lot of people, 40-something years old, walk on the mat with his top team hat and some cargo shorts and a polo button up, pull his car keys out of his shorts, pull his flip flops off, and because somebody needed a round, and he gave it to him like that. And just, man, sometimes it's like you're humbled and sometimes you're humiliated, you know. And like I feel like sometimes a lot of people he trained with probably got humiliated, you know.
Wow. All right. What about roommate Mike Brown?
A roommate, he was a great roommate for me. Like, this guy let me stay on his kitchen floor on an air mattress while Benji Raddick and Aaron Riley were the other people who had actual bedrooms. And when I first got a top team, like I just found a college to go to that took a late application, and I could pull out some student loans so I could live somewhere to train. Like, I had no plans to like be something, but like how do you go move to South Florida if you have no money? You know, like, you don't have any money, you don't have any credit, you don't have anything, but you're going to make it happen. You just find a college, pull out some student loan money, and you just live on campus and you drive to train. Like, that's what I did. But it was summertime, so it's like time to go home, right? So I just asked Mike if I could just stay on the air mattress on the kitchen floor or whatever. And he was like, let me talk to it with Benji and Aaron. I saw Aaron at the gym. I never saw Aaron at his house. Like, he always stayed in the room. And then Benji was cool with it. So they had like a table. I would just break down the kitchen table, set up my air mattress, sleep on the kitchen floor, deflate my air mattress, and put the kitchen table back up for poker night or for whatever it was. But Mike was, for me, I thought he was the man. Like, I never had to live with him for like a year or 2 years, but when he gave me a full summer, I was always grateful for that.
That's really cool. And what about Brad Pickett?
Pickett? What about Pickett?
You rolled with him. I'm assuming you guys used to work out together, correct?
Oh yeah. Did you guys ask me if I roomed or rolled with Mike Brown?
Well, I said your roommate because I knew you lived with him because he had
Oh
mentioned
yeah,
it
yeah.
in our interview.
Well, you want to talk about rolling? Mike Brown probably has messed me up more than anyone else in top team history. Like I had got so many rounds of training with that guy. I never won one fucking round. I barely ever mounted any offense, and he just crushed me all the time, you know? But Pickett was always great. I love Pickett. Awesome guy. Always gave me good sparring. You know, I sparred with him a lot more than we just like did regular grappling, you know, but we did a lot of MMA sparring together. It was always good goes.
Mike, I think you're on mute.
Yeah.
Real nice guy. Pickett, he did one of these with us as well. We did his cage rage years, and man, hell of a nice guy.
Yeah, and all the best to him and the success that he's doing right now. I know he started up his own academy here past like year or 2 years, something like that. So hope he still keeps killing it.
Cool. Miguel.
Paul, definitely nice to meet you. Man, you fought on AFC 19. I was the matchmaker for the first 15, so I missed you by a little bit. And I'm kind of feeling like I missed out on something there, man. Very nice to meet you. And
yeah, you too, Miguel.
Definitely a terrific interview.
All right, good, awesome.
Thanks for your time, brother.
Check out the full interview on iTunes, Spotify, and all major podcast platforms.